was easier because she was smaller. Society kind of accepts that behavior is acceptable. But when they start getting older and they look older and they are older and those behaviors are still happening out in society, that is where it gets really, really uncomfortable, not only for those that are seeing the behaviors, but it is uncomfortable for us as the parent.
Hello, my friends. I'm so happy that you're here. My name is Katie Taylor. I am a certified child life specialist. And as always, I'm just so grateful that you're joining us on this Wednesday. We are going to dive into Marna's episode in just a second. But in true 200 plus fashion, I'm changing things up a little bit on the podcast. And that is that we have taken themes over the past 200 episodes that parents have shared and are starting to incorporate a little bit of evidence and theory in them, truly in the child life way. As a child life specialist, we are evidence based and we're always practicing and growing and learning as much as possible. And so, as I was talking with Marna and chatting with her about her episode and reading her show notes ahead of time and just doing as much research as possible, we really got into some of the family dynamics that come from families who have children with and social needs. Families often like this navigate a path that many have not traveled and that can lead to a lot of unexpected isolations and challenges in finding social support. And so today, you'll hear how Marna kind of explores this and has gone through that path on her own. One of the theories that I want you to pick up is the stress and strain theory, which sheds light on how the intense care required for a child with special needs can strain family relationships and social connections. You'll hear her talk about how sometimes it's easier just to not do anything, which is, of course, an isolating life. We will also hear her speak about the social isolation theory and the concept of role overload. And many parents and caregivers juggle numerous roles from caregiver to employee, spouse, parent to other children. I know as a mom, we joke a lot about, like, I'm a driver and I'm a cook, I'm a this and that. But truly, these parents are taking on the role of nurse, employee, like, they're doing so many different things. It leaves such little time for building relationships outside of the home that help feed into the caregiver. Hello, my friends. Welcome to Child Life on Call. This podcast is a safe place for parents to share their stories about what it's like to have a child that has a medical experience, diagnosis, disease, and or everything in between. We know there's power in sharing stories and that power multiplies when you can listen to other parents who have walked a similar path to yours. Giving and getting advice is great, but hearing how another parent navigates the complexities and nuances of healthcare is even better. As a child life specialist, my role is to support, validate, and provide emotionally safe spaces for kids and their families, and I am so honored to be on this journey with you. In addition to parent stories, we sprinkle in some expert episodes every now and again that have content for both parents and professionals in the field of healthcare, all with the mission to empower parents to be confident advocates and partners with the care team during healthcare experiences. We're so glad you're here. Marna Pacheco is a devoted mother and an innovative inventor. We all know I love a mompreneur, especially a mom who has a child with special needs or disabilities or extra medical needs, because these are the moms and dads that get stuff done. Marna, alongside her husband, Dan, they cherish their family of four, including her biological daughter, Maddie, now 29, and Millie, who is her special needs daughter, who's nearing 18. And so you can guess, as Millie transitions into adult special needs, Marna is not only a dedicated mom and caregiver, but she's also the creative force behind CapeAble weighted products. But she is also the amazing creative force behind CapeAble weighted products. And she has even created like her own patent technology called Smart Weight technology. It's so cool, and we'll talk about it at the end of the episode. Marna does not shy away from talking about her own personal history and how she's facing her own kind of traumas and challenging events that happened in her childhood that led her to want to adopt and make a difference in the lives of other children. So we're going to start picking up exactly in our conversation where Marna shares the instinct that she had her whole entire life and how she wanted to adopt.
Well, I always dreamt of adopting. I come from a very traumatized background as well as dysfunctional.
Mm.
And so this element and drive to wanting a family was just so important for me. And when I heard about the plight of the one child policy in another country and that girls were not considered worthy of life, it drove a drive in me to say, someday I want to adopt 14 children. I want to have a lot of children or go into the foster care system and also help children that way. Just being able to build that family or give that sense of family. It was something that I didn't feel as a child, and it was something I wanted to give to a child that was like me at some level. And so the drive to adopt was always there, and it was just very driven. And so many years later, when that door opened up, decided to adopt outside of our country for an international adoption. And I was looking specifically for children who wouldn't be maybe the first choice of adoption, whether it was an older child, whether that was a child with special needs. And at that time, it's kind of an embarrassing to say, but at that time I was like, well, a fixable special need, you know?
Yeah.
And or a doable special needs. And
Mhm.
I think, when we were in the country adopting our child, I remember having this feeling of, I think we're going to get a few more surprises than we thought.
Yeah.
And of course, just coming from my own background, I was like, no problem. We'll solve it. We're going to solve the
Yeah.
problem. And not that she was the problem, but what we discovered in the research of what happens to children with no with children from absolutely pure neglect and abuse and all of the things that come with it, then what do we do with that? And what are the layers that we do with that? And then how do we parent that? How do we find therapies for that? How do we find all of those things? And that really became a journey of full time and then some journey of walking into understanding what trauma does to the brain, understanding attachment, understanding when a child does not feel safe or connected, but and then how do you get those services for that child? And then understanding then in the medical field that everything is a diagnosis and then it's all boxed and what about the whole child? And it was
Right.
really just a chaotic chaos of discovery for myself, but constantly plowing through going, okay, I'm going to be able to solve this problem and be able to solve this next problem. But what that did then is also affected our family, our everyday life. It affected that trauma coming into our family, even though we brought our own past traumas in, a husband and wife coming
Mhm.
together and then the dailies of life, if you will. It just
Right.
changed everything. It changed everything in the biggest way. And that's really where the journey started in this. And quite honestly, Millie's journey has taken me to the end of myself, but it's been the most beautiful beginning of understanding humanness and how to be compassionate and how to really be kind to other people and take notice that the story that is their life may not be what you see. And how can we come up beside? How can we be seen and safe and soothed and secure? And what can we do? I mean, she just brought so much to my life and so much fullness, but it doesn't negate how hard it really truly is. I mean, it is a 24-hour no break. It is a full-time
Right.
caregiver that lives with secondary PTSD and trauma and then the things that you deal with, whether it's going to the hospital or whether it's just trying to live in society and
Right.
live every day. And then yet that every day does not look normal. And every day, when we always kind of joke and say our Millie is predictably unpredictable. And it's just the everyday life that we live in, and you become accustomed to it, but then I kinda wanna rebel against that because I
Right.
wanna say we shouldn't become accustomed to that. We should be able to step in and recognize that and help each other in the best way possible. So, another way that I describe it is if someone were to walk outside of on the sidewalk outside of our house, they would say, "Oh, it looks like a pleasant little house. It looks sweet. It's all that." But inside, there is a tornado, a tsunami, a hurricane
Right.
happening and going on. And it requires people stepping into the home.
Another thing we talked about before we got started here was, over the past 200 episodes, these themes have emerged. One is the social and relational impact that having a child with disabilities, with a diagnosis, with any kind of special need does to you and to your family and the way that it affects. And not only that, but the stigma and the judgment from society. I can imagine that you have had to deal with that,
Yes.
for a very long time. How much of that do you think was has changed from the beginning of your journey and becoming a parent to where you are now? Is it easier to swallow now? Do you know your answers now, your responses? What has that journey been like as you've kind of found yourself and your people?
Well, it's such a great question, and there's so many layers to it. When Millie was younger, it was easier. It was harder and easier in different ways.
Mhm.
It was easier because she was smaller, and society kind of accepts, or whether they judge them or not, which they do, and they did, and we had lots of judgments on behaviors. Like, can't you control your child? Well, you knew all of those things were kind of being murmured or whispered, or you'd get the looks. But they're smaller and they look like children, like smaller children.
Mhm.
So, oh, okay, that behavior is acceptable, but not acceptable. Kind of like when they start getting older and they look older and they are older and those behaviors are still happening out in society, that is where it gets really, really uncomfortable, not only for those that are seeing the behaviors, but it is uncomfortable for us as the parent. Now we're the caregiver and the parent, which are kind of two different things, or they should be. And then, but most of all, it's just so horrible for that adult special needs child, if you will, my daughter, who's displaying these things that are just hard. They're not accepted in society. So,
Yeah.
you know, I think what's been hard for me to navigate is how bold do I get in
Mhm.
sharing how much of the extreme behaviors and the severe behaviors that are not only seen in our home, and then what happens outside of our home with those extreme behaviors that are unsafe for her and unsafe for others, and they do look not typical. And how open and bold am I with that? I understand, my story might be a little bit different, but it's the same. It's been really, really hard. So now as an adult, she'll be adult here in a couple weeks as we take full guardianship of her because she is mostly nonverbal. Her behaviors are extreme and severe. It's different now to be able to step into community. It's just easier not to do anything. It's easier not to go to church. It's
Mm.
easier not to, and then we don't have the services in some of those community things that we would go out into. We
Right.
don't have XYZ that would allow us to be able to function in a way that is unique to Miss Millie, but at the same time helpful to our family. And it is a huge gap that is missing for the adult special need community of how the caregivers are being supported in this to help our children navigate the world and thrive. I mean, she should be given every opportunity to thrive as an adult. And it is really hard with those outliers that are profound and extreme and can be unsafe to themselves or others in those moments, if you will. It is so, so, so complicated. And my heart breaks so much for the need. And yet there isn't a simple path to the need, or we're not being heard what that need is because of red tape, because of organizations that, you got to follow the XYZ and the rules and all these things. And they don't fit that particular community of full-time parent caregivers or the adult special needs community for the profound behaviors. And we've got to come up with some solutions. right? We do. And I don't know what that is necessarily, except for maybe trying to create community like what you have done through your podcast and creating that community for child life specialists. How do we create those communities um, for full-time parent caregivers of adult special needs children? And then how do we find places that are where they can thrive and live and be, What does that look like?
I love that. I wanna keep going. I wanna know what I mean, like, let's say, you're handed a magic wand and all of the money in the world,
Oh,
and you were able to create something. And, we don't have to get,
right.
really general, like, even just one specific thing that you could do to make Millie's experience and your experience too, because what you go through matters as well. Over the past 18 years, if you could magic wand and fix, quote unquote, one of the challenges that you faced, what would it be?
Boy, I have a lot of things flowing through my mind, but I think I'm going to capture one real quick. We need workers that are trained, specially trained to help care for the profound and severe adult special needs. We have nurses and even your training that you had to go through. I mean, that training, we need to pay the workers for their amazing work that they're going to have to do. They need training and education and understanding. Our
Right.
most vulnerable are in the schools, for example, if they have a para or if they have an aide or however you want it, they're not trained. It can be anyone off of the street that gets the lowest paying job salary for or hourly for that most important job with our most vulnerable. These are precious, beautiful human beings who deserve to thrive and survive in a beautiful way, just like you and I do, and just like we are in society. And we're not giving them the resources, we're not giving them trained, beautiful workers to come up beside them because they are so dependent on whether it's medically fragile or if they need to be fed or there needs to be certain thing, G tubes, I mean, or wheelchair. I mean, it goes on and on. Our Millie is physically capable of everything. She is fast and furious. But the
Mhm.
developmental delay and the lack of speech and communication back and forth means you have to do a ton of guessing and understanding and getting, and it requires specialty trainers to be able to help care for that. And then as caregivers, trusting those that are caring for our loved ones to do it in the most what I would call God honoring, beautiful human way to
Right.
that beautiful person that just deserves that. And so, again, our most vulnerable is just being overlooked and cast away in a way. So, I want trained, educated workers that get a beautiful, beautiful pay to reflect that.
Mhm.
They deserve that themselves for being trained. I would love to see adult communities that are built that could be thriving. We care about her thriving, reaching her own abilities and celebrating all of those abilities that she can have and that she can be in a society that also will celebrate it or help provide those services that can happen. And then when it comes to the caregiver, the full-time parent caregiver, we need to be seen. We need respite, respite, respite. I mean, we don't get to care for ourselves. We don't. And then when you don't care for yourself and your health goes down and all the things happen, then you don't even know how to have compassion towards yourself anymore because you're so driven to continue to care and take care of the needs. There's just not a
Yeah.
lot available for that individual, but it is also not a lot of help for us. I'm 56, will be 57. And so, I mean, we all die around 80 years old. I think it's what the average is. And so, who is going to take care of my child? How can I create a community that can help take care of that child? Adult. How do we come in and keep ourselves regulated, care for ourselves, and to have compassion in those big moments, but as well as those little moments. And then how can we help carry the weight? Can those step into the storm, if you will, and help us? And then what does that need look like for everyone? How can we care for the caregiver? How do we care for the most vulnerable is really what I'm asking. And that's
Mm.
not an easy answer, unfortunately.
It's not an easy answer, but you're not asking for the moon.
No, it doesn't
Do
seem
you know
like
what I
it.
mean? You're not asking for another planet to be you are asking for proper training,
Yeah.
adequate pay, and respite care.
Oh my goodness, yes, right there. And an empowerment for us to be able to connect with other human beings and to be able to have compassion and allow for every individual to thrive in life that they're living daily. Yeah.
You know, it I'm thinking of the compassion part that you're speaking about and kind of at the beginning when you were talking about how it's so true when children are younger and they're cute and they mess up or they throw something or they put poop on the wall. It is what
Yep.
it is,
Yep.
kids. But as they
Yep.
get older, society looks and changes and even in the medical system, right? That
Yes.
judgment starts to get bigger and bigger. As someone who has worked in a hospital alongside families, my intuition would be to like lock eyes with you and say, like, tell me exactly what you need right now
Yes.
from
Yes.
like 1 to 10, from getting from the car in here and back. Like, what are the things? But when we're in a grocery store and something like this happens, how do you want people to respond? What is the most compassionate response that you could get?
Oh, you're gonna make me cry. Well, we have a beautiful story that happened to us, and I'm so sorry. But so our Millie was having quite a big meltdown in the store. So when Millie will have these, when they hit her, again, she's thinking the world is unsafe. She's having severe PTSD, complex developmental trauma disorder, because of her neglect in the orphanage and malnutrition and the physical needs that she had and cleft lip and cleft palate and all of that. For her, it's not just a memory, she's reliving what happened, the trauma with her. So when that happens and it hits, it is clothes are stripped off, shoes get flung, anything she can grab is thrown off the shelf. And of course, then us, my husband or I, it's usually never both of us, it's one or the other. And so then you're trying to do a safe hold. You're like trying to help. You're trying to keep everybody else safe. And then you're clearing the aisles out, and people see this and they're looking and they don't know what to do. And we understand that people don't know what to do in that moment. But here's what happened one day. One day, a woman was watching and instead of stepping away, just stood there. And then when there was a little bit of enough clearing, if you will, she stepped in and she said, I don't know what you need right now at this moment, but I'm going to just stand over here just in case you need me. I'll wait. In fact, what you guys do, our experience with child life specialists, when we've had to do MRIs for Millie in the medical community and all of that, we need thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of you in this area for the special need caregivers and the parents and the children and the adult children, because it's those training things that we can just give to the person who may not have a title or a profession. They can step in and give gift cards. There could be other things where you carry the weight of, instead of waiting for us to say, well, we need some wall repair
No, no,
or
no,
we
no, no, no.
need a carpet cleaner, like a real good big carpet cleaning thing happening in our home every 6 weeks or whatever,
Right,
or carpet replacement so that we don't have
right.
carpet, right? Whatever those needs are in the home, or yard work or car. I mean, I want to go beyond just some of the maybe the known ones, but to get a little bit more into the details of what those little practical helps can be. And if we're six people that came in and said, we'll take 1 time a month or one time every 3 months or 6 months, and the collaborative come together, that means that one person is not responsible for 100% of all the big that needs to take place and the little that needs to take place. It's carrying the weight. The question is, do we have a society that's willing to recognize the full-time caregiver, and usually it's the parents, and do we have a society that's willing to look at the most vulnerable and address their needs that need to be taken care of from birth to end of life. And my daughter is what will kill her first before, because she doesn't have a fragile medical need, but is more that she'll get hit by a car when she runs off. That's what's
Right.
going to hurt my daughter first before maybe a condition of the heart or another kind of medically fragile issue that other families might be dealing with. All of that is just horrific for us as caregivers and parents to have to carry.
The weight, yeah.
Yep.
The
Yep.
weight on your shoulders every moment of every day. In the spirit of magic wanding, it seems like just like teenagers go to driving school and
Yeah.
they have to take classes. If there was some sort of training that maybe because people may not even know that a profession or job like this exists,
Right.
right? That it is even a need because it's
Right.
just not something that they've ever seen before. But this
Correct.
whole lesson in this is how you empathize. This is how you offer compassionate support to a person you see in the grocery store.
Yep.
Like just those life skills, like instead of learning how to sew or cook or learning how to like
Right.
make the human race even better.
Right.
Okay, so I think we're on to something, you and me. So
Yeah.
if anybody else is listening and wants to come in on this new
Yes.
community we're building, let us know.
Yes. Yes.
Mm, As we are talking, you've mentioned weight a couple times, the weight that you can't see on the 24/7 parent caregiver. But you have actually created weight too. And I want to talk a little bit about how I've been following you on Instagram and the products that you made. And I have to assume it's because you saw it make a difference with Millie.
Correct. So again, going occupational therapy, and she mentioned weighted products to help that overwhelmed nervous system. We like to say if we're calm, then we're regulated. Unfortunately, calm does not always mean regulated, but our nervous systems do tell us if we're safe or not with an autonomic response. So if you're walking down a dark alley in the middle of the night and you hear a click or a crick or whatever, you don't just go, "Hey, no problem," and swagger through the dark alley. All of a sudden, your autonomic nervous system does a response and says, "Oh," freeze and
Right.
wait, I'm not safe. So that is so important to understand with weighted therapy done correctly and current to neuroscience, that it's not super heavy or it needs to like bury yourself under all this heavy, but it's really helping that nervous system to feel safe and comforted like a hug that can then release those wonderful endorphins, which is the happy hormone, if you will, and it makes you feel safe. You can get an unsafe hug, but we want safe hugs. So we want not a
Mm,
heavy hug, we want the just right weight hug that just activates that nervous system to release the safe, happy hormones through your body. So basically, that OT said, look at weighted products on the market. And as any mom did, I went to online and I looked at weighted blankets and I saw weighted blankets, lap pads, and the ugly, what I call institutional blue vest. And so my first thought was, there is no way I'm going to put that ugly weighted vest with rocks in the pocket, which is the bean bags or the sandbags or whatever, around the perimeter of the vest. And I thought, and Velcro, because that looked like a restraint. And my daughter
mm,
was tied down with restraint until we adopted her close over 2 years of age. And so that's part of the neglect and the abuse that she had. She was tied down and left to die, sadly, because of a physical, noticeable facial defect. So basically, I was not going to put that blue vest on her, right? Because that
No.
represented her past, and I was not going to do that. So I looked at the weighted blanket and I looked at the lap pad and I thought, I can sew that. I can make that myself. I love sewing and was not a problem. But Millie gave me a bunch of clues. She stood up and the weighted blanket fell down at her feet. And I thought, how am I going to get her out the front door? So blankets are wonderful, but you can't carry your blanket around with you the rest of your life. So the
Right.
reality is, what can we do to produce a wearable that was dignified, fashionable, stylish, if you will, with using weighted products? And then also the biggest factor had to be machine wash, tumble dry, mom. Practicality right there. I collected Vogue patterns and there was a capelet. And I thought, oh, what if I do this really cute pretty little princess cape for her. And in my research of nerve activation and understanding what needed to happen, it wasn't about heavy or rocks in the pocket. It was really about how many nerves are you activating and touching. And
Hmm.
the result of that was using less weight more effectively with total freedom of movement for that person using the product, whether it was a blanket laying down or a product in an upright position and it stayed and it didn't fall down with gravity, if you will. And so, what that's called is smart weight technology, and it is patented actually. And we've been able to
Wow.
take that smart weight technology and infuse it in our personal soft, plush, wonderful products, machine wash, tumble dry, and in the medical grade where it's just wipe clean. And so, it can go into all medical community and all personal home use. And so
Oh
here
my
we are
gosh.
in Indiana with a wonderful manufacturing facility that I created to make this product with smart weight technology that is patented because of how we do it and then how it can be used in those two different applications as far as medical as well as home use. Our product is very, very safe because of how it is a 2-inch grid, how the weight is distributed, how we use a medical grade glass bead. It's all produced here in the USA. And then our medical grade, of course, has to pass all infectious, or control infectious disease, whatever, however,
Oh gosh,
aviation.
yes.
Yeah.
You know what? You're
Yeah.
speaking the language for sure. You have dealt with those people before, as have I. And so like when you said wipeable, I
Yes.
wanted to go
Right
through
there.
here and kiss you.
Yes. Yes.
I want to know is it so it's obviously Millie approved.
Yes.
And when does Millie use the product?
So Millie uses the product every single day. I use the
Okay.
product every single day. And that's something I want to make sure that also comes out that this is for anybody with a nervous system. So that means every human being. I don't care if you're an adult or a child or what. We have vulnerable nervous systems because we are living in a world that's really complicated, overwhelmed, and hard. It's messy,
Mhm.
right? So it is for you for self-care. It could be the elderly. It could be, your children or your adult children. It's dignified and it's a little stylish, if you will, and it's easy to care. It's easy to use, wear, and care is what I say. My desire is to help vulnerable nervous systems in today's world to be given one drop of hope, just one drop of hope. We can keep going on with one drop of hope. Getting to sit here and talk to you and see your face on this and to talk, you are one drop of hope for me. What your profession does is one drop of hope. When I had to walk into, the biggest hospital system in Indiana for my daughter to get an MRI, that child life specialist not only talked to me beforehand, but met us there and walked with me. They saw us. They saw my daughter. They allowed us to do what was safe for our daughter. They overrode, in a way, the system that doesn't see the person. You guys
Yes.
are being a detective and knowing what those needs are. So I want to offer these products for those that are caring for others that can give them a safe product and a dignified product and a product that really can offer one drop of hope, if you will.
I think there's so many opportunities for a product like yours to make such a difference. And thank you for saying that about child life.
Ugh,
A child life, you've mentioned a couple things about our training and being adequately paid, which is just so timely in our field right now.
Yeah.
But we are in this because this is our calling, and to get to meet people like you is just my complete honor. And I'm thinking about like moms sitting at the NICU, right?
Oh,
Who are
yes.
not able to carry their babies but are craving weight. Like what a beautiful cape to wear as it just I think the
Well,
opportunities are endless.
guess what? I did create
What?
a little baby blanket with weight. We make more than just a cape. We've got different
Mhm.
sizes weighted blankets. We have different wearables from a shoulder wrap to a fashion scarf to a vest and a cape. We are one tool of many tools, but we happen
I
to
was
be
just thinking that.
the
Mhm.
best weighted tool, in my opinion, in the
Mhm.
market that is just current to neuroscience and understanding what trauma can do to the brain and to our nervous systems. And we do live in a world that feels unsafe. And so, what can we do? What can we do to be safe with each other and then connect and have regulation? And that's really the goal of CapeAble. Sweet little Miss
Mhm.
Millie, for what you just did. Thank you for allowing us to be a part of your life in order to show us how we need to be better with each other and safe
Mhm.
with each other.
Well, thank you so much. And I just have one final question. I would love to know your favorite part of being Millie's mom.
Oh, wow. Ah, such a great question. I guess I love when I get to see glimpses of her trueness that isn't normally seen. Behaviors can just cover a lot of stuff up. But when I get to see kind of like the it's like seeing behind the eyes where I can see her and I can tell she wants to say, I love you, mommy, or express something to us that she can't say or she doesn't know how or however that is. It's like it's like the no words, but
Mm.
she's feeling it, or she instigates something. I know it's
It,
so
it's
hard
that
to
it's that
explain.
it's that soul connection
Yes. Yes.
that you're having. It
Yes.
sounds like.
Yes. The soul connection of she sees me
Uh-huh.
clearly and I see her clearly.
Ooh, it's giving me chill bumps all
Yeah.
over my body just to hear you say that.
Uh,
Oh my gosh. Well, Millie has one wonderful mom.
I want people to know that they can reach their own capabilities. Just reach your capabilities and know that you are safe and you're seen and you're heard, and thrive in that.
Thank you so much to Marna for joining us on the podcast. I just went to capeable.com, which is where Marna has all of her products. So it's CapeAble. So think of a cape and then think of being very able. I love that. CapeAble. And her products do not look like any kind of weighted blanket I've ever seen before. They're beautiful. They look soft and so plush. I literally am just looking at it right now. So you can go to Instagram and follow them at CapeAble Weighted Products, or you can go to capeable.com and see all of the amazing things that she's created from. It almost looks like beautiful vests or capes or blankets. It's gorgeous. And the best part is, as she said, they're all wipeable. You can clean them. You have to be able to throw them in the laundry. I love watching moms create incredible things that not only end up helping their children, but other families all across the world. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we will see you again next week on the podcast. If you don't already, you can come hang out with us on Instagram. We're at Child Life on Call, and I'm so glad that you're here.